good to be here. So this is the state of Drupal 8, essentially. Can I give you the lowdown on, what new things are in, what do we have left to do, how you can contribute, kind of thing. So I'm really excited to get this off because I was really involved in Drupal 7, and I haven't been quite as involved in Drupal 8. But I mean, when you're really involved, that's not really a good thing to say. But I'm partly involved in kind of watching from the sidelines with very curious interest. So I'm really excited to share this. You can also follow along. There's a link to this presentation if you wanted to click the links. It's just davereid.github.io/today's date with dashes in the European format, not the American format. So yeah, you can follow along. And I'm also live streaming this on Google Hangout. But it's only showing my monitor, so you can't wave. So a little bit about me. I'm a senior engineer at Palantir.net. We're based out of Chicago. We're an all Drupal firm. And I like to write modules, as has kind of been explained. And I like to solve really hard problems. I'm commonly known as the module guy. Whether that's a good thing or a mental problem, we're not quite sure yet. But it's yet to be seen. I've been contributing to Drupal since 2006. My first patch to Drupal core was to fix a HTTP header if you were using PHP CGI on DreamHost. And it got rejected by Dries, because it's like, no, we're not supporting this. So I started off with a bang. And I'm proud of being a new dad as of last October. So I have a son, Oliver, who, yeah. I don't know, like Drupal's always defined me, and now it's Drupal and being a dad. It's kind of cool. And you may also know two of my cats. Well, at least one of them. So I have a cat named Rodney, who's like the unofficial Drupal mascot, and has actually run for the Drupal Association, but he didn't get allowed because he's not a human. And I have another cat named Athena, but she's not as social media aware. And I do want to preface this. I'm from Nebraska. I fully realize that I'm in Iowa now. I will respect that. I'll leave football at the door. Even though we're only like 25 days away from football season, we can work together here. It's a football agnostic room here. And I'd like to acknowledge, give some thanks for some people that have, this is kind of like a running presentation about Drupal 8. So I'm not the first person to give this, but we all kind of have added on this presentation, and these are all the people that have helped contribute to this presentation. So what I'm going to talk about today is kind of give you the big picture of Drupal 8. What's new, what are the cool things for site builders, what are the cool things for developers, and as part of that, we'll kind of highlight the major initiatives in Drupal 8. So I'll kind of explain those. And then kind of the last part will show how you can still help. Because Drupal 8's not released yet. We're still at an alpha phase right now. So there's still a chance for you to contribute and make things better. So to kind of step back a little bit, Drupal 7 was released in January 2011. So this has been something that's been, over 2 years in the works here with Drupal 8. Because we started that right then, essentially. Well, maybe March. I think I remember in DrupalCon, Chicago, yeah, is when we officially opened the 8x branch, and there was a big applause, and then it was like, okay, we opened the branch. That was cool. And in February this year, we actually hit feature freeze. So all the major features that we're trying to add either had to be in or have a really good reason to have an exception, or they're going to be delayed until Drupal 9. And actually in July we hit our API freeze, where we're trying to start stabilizing and being like, well, we can't really change that function without a really, really good reason. Because we want to make sure that people can start porting modules to Drupal 8 or start beta testing Drupal 8. So we want to give them more of a stable platform to use. So we're currently in that polish phase right now. And there's a couple of alpha releases out right now. So yes, we're going to summarize this. So one of the first things that I kind of like to get out of the way is, I'm going to cover all these cool things, but when can I start using it? And there's a couple different answers. Dries says 2014. I say maybe a year after that, maybe sometime in between. And the answer is if you just need to build a site with Drupal core with all these cool things I'm about to show you, you could probably start relatively soon, like maybe end of this year. But if you need, more modules, or you have like a site that needs Drupal commerce or that kind of stuff, you're probably going to have to wait a little bit. I would encourage you to start trying it now and reporting those issues. But for like a production major site, we're probably looking at a year or two away here. But I don't want to diminish the work that's being happened either. It's just kind of a realistic thing. I'm kind of a realist or a pessimist in the Drupal community, which is great. Then I can give talks about things. So here's just a short video from the Drupal Dev Days. I'm excited about Drupal 8, but maybe it'll be better to hear like what some other people are excited about Drupal 8. So I'd like to play this for you.
Last week, Compress was in Dublin for the Drupal Dev Days 2013. I asked 30 people 3 questions. Here are the answers to question 1. What is exciting about Drupal 8?
Being able to write unit testable code and having a proper unit testing framework to test it.
The CMI initiative. Form display modes using core.
Better user interface.
In many systems, there's a lot of care and attention given to making things easier for people who don't already know Drupal.
Multilingual support is the new entity API.
The Drupal community integrates now with other open source community.
Finally, it's becoming an object-oriented system.
And object-oriented stuff.
Using core.
Yeah. Twig templates, it makes it so much easier for front-enders.
It's the 7th style guide.
Object-oriented architecture. More separation of more features so we can use them as solemn features and not as a whole thing.
The possibility to have formatters and widgets on properties.
We have a style guide in Drupal 8, which means we can achieve consistency throughout the admin user interface.
Now you can get your nodes out to JSON and XML pretty easily.
Drupal 8 is based on the Symfony stack, which means that it's using some of the ESI and HTTP kernel plugins.
Using core and inline editing.
Inline editing. The fact that the theme layer and theming is simplified.
Formals just got in.
The configuration management initiative.
RESTful API configuration management system.
I really like the language Twig.
It's almost done. We're approaching code freeze.
Thanks for watching. Keep an eye on our Twitter stream and on YouTube for the answers to question 2 next week.
We won't know what question 2 is. Sorry, we're going to end a cliffhanger. So there are a lot of buzzwords there. There's Twig, configuration management, views. I think that's kind of a self-explanatory one if you know the Drupal community. So to kind of cover how we've made a lot of this major progress, we kind of formed a new thing in Drupal 8 called initiatives, where they're more of a formalized structure and working groups to make changes into core. So we had, a mobile initiative with a person that's the leader of that initiative and helps drive that effort. Configuration management, HTML5, layouts, multilingual, views in core, web services. So, that's a good list of, big major changes, and it was really nice to have this format of initiatives because it gave a little bit more structure for how people can contribute. Because it's like, oh, do you want to help with mobile? Go talk to John Elbin. He's the mobile initiative lead. And it's just a really nice change in Drupal core development that really helped make a lot of progress. And of course, we had some unofficial initiatives too. There was the Spark team from Acquia. They were working on kind of an incubation distro that worked on Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. And they were the main drivers for a lot of stuff with like inline editing and authoring experience. And they made a lot of effort too and got a lot of stuff in. That was really great. Twig was actually an unofficial initiative. We all kind of wanted it, but it was never like really declared. But people all did the research and Twig was decided. And it's our new template system in Drupal 8, the default one. And it's got some really nice improvements. We'll be able to see just a little bit about that later. And there's other initiatives too. I run the unofficial file and media management initiative. And then there's other ones too. So yeah, there's lots of people kind of gathering and grouping for these efforts. So back last year around this time, we were kind of keeping track on what the status of these initiatives were. And you can kind of see, things were kind of, not really doing great. They're kind of getting there. The developing phase may be starting out. But I'm kind of proud to say that this is the current status of the major official initiatives, and they're all 60 to 90% done, essentially. So we're still in that polish phase, kind of figuring stuff out. There were definitely some major successes here. So the first one is the mobile initiative. Back at DrupalCon Chicago, Dries really put this kind of focus. If we were to start building Drupal from scratch, he said, essentially we'd want to start it for mobile. We've adapted a lot of old technologies and kind of kept doing the same thing, and we really wanted to take this as an approach to, okay, mobile's here to stay, we really need to adapt to it. Along with that, if we're focusing on mobile, we're also focusing on front-end performance and, making sure that we can do things like responsiveness, responsive images, using the right image sizes and lower quality images for mobile and that kind of thing. So we wanted to really focus on that because, Drupal never has any performance problems, no. So they got together and kind of documented some mobile things. What should we do? And that's always like the first step of initiative. So that's a good link there. And we're actually proud to say that all of the themes that ship with Drupal 8 are actually responsive by default and out of the box. So that's really a good kind of thing to be able to show, for people trying out Drupal 8. And the Stark theme, which is kind of just a base, empty, unstyled theme, is also responsive, which gives people a good starting point if you want to use that as a base theme, actually. So that's really great. And of course, we can see this actually in practice with Drupal 7. If you tried, has anyone actually tried to load their Drupal site on their phone? Yeah, you're really brave. Because it's kind of fun sometimes. If you don't have a responsive theme, it looks like that. But it's kind of nice. Now in Drupal 8, we've got that responsive theme, so you can actually click around to stuff without having to zoom in a whole bunch. You can actually navigate around, and you don't have to scroll a whole bunch either. And it just kind of works out of the box, which is nice. Menus too are a thing that was improved. This is the core toolbar in Drupal 7. And now the new improved toolbar in Drupal 8. It has a nice kind of responsiveness. It either goes along the top if you're on the desktop or along the side if you're on a mobile, and it can easily be dismissed as well and pulled back down. So that's just a nice improvement. So if you're actually adding content, that's been improved as well. Here's the Drupal 7 version and the Drupal 8. It's kind of, it's better aligned to what kind of device you have. You can easily more fill things out. It's just a nice thing. And we've also added some new technologies and modules for this responsiveness. There's a breakpoint module that helps define certain breakpoints in your theme. And there's actually a picture module that allows you to make responsive pictures. So it uses different image styles based on what breakpoint you're at. So if you're interested in helping in mobile, my actually coworker, John Albin, is the one who's leading this initiative. He works at Palantir as well. There's their groups page, and they are in the IRC channel of #Drupal-mobile. And there's still some things that they need work on. I know I was talking to John recently. He's got some tasks to work on for researching what people use as terminology in other systems as part of their initiative. So there's still things to do, and you'd appreciate your help. Usability, kind of along with responsiveness, is a big focus for Drupal 8 as well. So we actually have an improved content editing screen. So before Drupal 7, you had all your fields and then all the detailed stuff at the bottom in a vertical tabs, which was an improvement from Drupal 6. But now with Drupal 8, we kind of got to this nice thing. We put all the detailed stuff on the side. maybe like another popular CMS system that people know about, but it's an improvement. So, and if you were to change your screen, the right side pops down to the bottom. So it's a great improvement there. And as part of that, we actually have a WYSIWYG editor in Core. There's a big debate, as there always is with major things with Drupal, and we kind of had a battle of the WYSIWYG editors. There was, I think, Aloha and CKEditor were kind of the big last runners, and CKEditor actually won in the end. So this ships with Core, and it's enabled by default in your standard profile, and it's just really nice. And if you remember WYSIWYG in Drupal 7 or have used it before in previous versions, there's a lot of configuration, and it's not exactly friendly to set up either. This WYSIWYG in Drupal 8 is actually really nice, because I can set up buttons by dragging them into toolbars, and I can make new toolbars there in the UI. It's really, really handy. I can show that if we have a little bit of extra time. We'll see. So yep, we've got a CKEditor module. Let's see. And so one of the things that the Spark team brought in was that in-place editing. So if you have this edit module enabled on your site, what you can do is on your front page, if you've got a node, you can hit a little edit button in the toolbar, and it kind of shows all the things that you could edit on your page. And you click that, and you can edit your body or the node that you want to, just right there. So it's really great for quick edits. If anyone went to DrupalCon Portland, there was a keynote speaker, Karen McGrain, that kind of had a differing opinion of WYSIWYG editors. But this is just kind of a nice way for just those quick edits. You just need to change one little thing. This probably shouldn't be used for major edits or revisions, that kind of stuff. But it's handy to have. So yeah, you can edit content on the page. There's a tour module now in Drupal 8, which is actually really, really handy, and something I wish I would have had for client projects a lot. It's this library that adds a tour button in the toolbar if there's one available for the current page you're on. And all it really does is just kind of, hey, here's some things to highlight on the current page. So there's a tour for the views UI, how to edit a view. That can really help people get started out for the first time. That's just really nice to have. And you can make new tours via configuration, that kind of stuff. So it's just really nice. And Bohan Summers and Roy are the leads of the usability, and they're in the IRC channel of #Drupal-usability. Configuration management. This is a fun one. So this is kind of a little bit more technical, but everyone benefits from it. So in your Drupal 7, if you added a field or changed a variable or a setting somewhere, the typical way you have to change that is you use features for that. Or you write an update hook to make those changes, and it's always kind of a pain. So actually, we now in Drupal 8 have a standardized configuration API using YAML files. So we now store them in the file system, and they're it's just as easy as just copying files to your live server essentially, and just a refresh, and those configuration files will be picked up. So for developers, there's no more variable gets. You now use config helpers, which is a little bit more work, but it enables this nice system to actually happen. And again, they're stored in YAML files, and you'll probably want to get used to YAML files a lot, because there will be a lot of them on your site. A lot of them. There's a YAML file for every field you have. There's a YAML file for every field instance you have. So, I mean, it's really nice that we have this, but it's just there would be a lot of files, but it enables so much more. So, typically, the Drupal phrases don't hack core. So now in Drupal 8, you need to make sure you don't hack your YAML files. Just leave them alone. You can use them for deployment, but don't change them. If you are a module developer or a theme developer, you'll typically write .info files to describe the module you're using. We've actually adapted the YAML file standard for those as well. So it's just a small change. And Greg Dunlap at Lullabot is the lead of configuration management, and they still have issues to work on, and he would love your help. They're in the IRC channel of #Drupal-DMI. HTML5, it's the new standard out there. We want to make sure we're supporting it and staying ahead of the game, or at least staying with the game, I guess. There could be HTML7 coming out soon anyway. So by default, Drupal is HTML5 for all of its theme output. We support the new HTML5 input elements, so you can use like actual email fields or URL fields. So if you're on your phone and you hit an email field, your keyboard should add the @ character for you automatically. It's just kind of nice. We added support for being able to upload multiple files all at once. This is just a simple version of it. It's not like a Flash version or Plupload or that kind of stuff. But if you select 4 files and then drag them into your upload field, it actually supports that, as long as your file field allows multiple values. But it works, and it's just kind of nice. That's an HTML5 thing. And I should mention that John Elbin also leads the HTML5 initiative as well. But that one's kind of mostly done, so that's good. We had another kind of major initiative called Blocks and Layouts. So, Drupal 7, it ships with block module out of the box. A lot of people use panels, some people use panelizer, some people use context. And there's just all these different solutions. You can't reuse a block easily with Drupal core. There's lots of frustrations there that we've always had. So one of the solutions now in Drupal 8 is we have a plugin API. And we basically converted anything that uses some kind of hook info to use these plugin system. So blocks use hooked block API. These now are plugins called blocks. And it kind of changes the way that we think about things. They're a little bit more reusable now, because it's okay, well, if I want the login block, I grab the login plugin, or the login block plugin, and I can use that. And I can reuse it again, too. And it's a really nice way for developers to interact with things. And again, it makes it more reusable. So there's the documentation for that as well. And for the Blocks and Layouts initiative, the lead is Chris Vanderwater, and it's the #Drupal-Scotch channel. Multilingual is another great initiative in Drupal 8. Has anyone made a multilingual site before? Yeah, there's a few. Okay, all right. So things are going to work much better in Drupal 8. I think this is probably the most successful initiative in Drupal 8. Gabor is the lead of that, and he did a great job. So there's lots of just various problems with Drupal 8. You need lots of modules. You can't translate field values without needing a module. If you're trying to install Drupal on a different language, you can't actually do that. The installer is always English. So we actually kind of addressed a lot of these things. So the first step is you choose your language in the installer, and it actually downloads those language files for you, or supports it out of the box if they're available. So you can actually do your install in the language, which is really nice. It's not a typical problem we have in the United States sometimes, but it's really nice for that international support. And again, it downloads those translation files from the localization server, so it's just kind of ready to go for you, which is really nice. Improved right-to-left styling, too, for those languages that need it. A little bit of quick code here. So there's actually a entity translation API built into core. So for translating fields on your nodes or fields on users, it's working with that as a little bit better. Rather than having to manually figure out which field value you need to get, you can just tell the translation system, hey, give me the Spanish version of this node, and I'll just get the fields that I need, and it just works much better. This kind of actually shows the improved entity API, which is very developer-centric, and I would require another hour to cover. But if you have developers, they would probably really be interested in that as well. So again, Gabor is the lead of that, and there's still issues to work out there, and he's in the #Drupal-I18N channel for internationalization. Views in Core. So everyone uses the Views module. Does anyone not use the Views module? Yeah, there's no hands there. So you'll all like this. So it was officially merged into Core October of last year. Right around, yeah. And that was just a really great success moment because it's like we put in a thing that everyone uses and it works really well. And now if you wanted to use a new version of Drupal, Views is ready to go automatically from every moment out. With Drupal 7, we kind of see here it took about 1.5 years to get a release candidate release of Views after Drupal 7 was released. And that's kind of the slow rate of adoption that Drupal has, the problem that we're trying to solve. It's like, well, let's just put Views into Core. Everyone uses it. It has to be and it has to be ready to go. So kind of solve that problem, at least and we'll continue to evaluate that for the major modules. So Views uses that new plugin API for like the field handlers and all the kind of stuff it does. The views are stored using the configuration management YAML files, so they can be deployed easily. The tables in Views can actually be built to be responsive, so you can hide certain columns in your table for mobile devices if they're low priority, essentially. And we also kind of built in Views bulk operations into Core as well, which is really helpful. Everyone uses that. And Views also supports kind of these non-standard format, or shouldn't say non-HTML formats. So REST formats and JSON and YAML. It can output stuff using that built into Core as well. Your home page is now a view, so you can tweak that and change it how you need. And that's enabled by default. And we're also converting a lot of the listing pages in the admin listings to Views. So you can tweak those and change those, because typically people replace those with Views as well. So yeah, that's awesome. This is like the biggest thing, and it's great to have in Drupal 8. It's nearly complete, but they have some issues remaining. And if you want to help out in the IRC channel, it's #Drupal-VDC. And I think one of the last official initiatives we had is the web services one. They somehow backronymed it to Scotch, because apparently we like our alcohol acronyms in Drupal initiatives. So it's designed to, Drupal has always been like HTML. That's always what we deliver. And we wanted to really take a chance to investigate what to make HTML a part of Drupal, but allow it to do so much more. We really want to make sure it has proper APIs for interacting with content, so that you could use Drupal as your content repository, but not actually have to use the front end at all. You could use, Node.js to interact with the APIs of Drupal and serve your content with a mobile app and that kind of thing. So that's really what this sought to do. And so we did this by integrating the Symfony stack. So Symfony is a kind of this large library designed to run PHP applications, essentially. And they have lots of components, and so we essentially built Drupal on top of this, essentially. So it's kind of an interesting thing. If you're developing HTML, you shouldn't really need to know about this. But it enables a lot of cool functionality. And kind of what I said with Views, we have this serialization. So you can take a node and actually export it to JSON or export it to XML using Core, which is really nice for APIs, things that want to do that. We actually replaced our HTTP library that makes requests with a popular Guzzle library is what it's called. So we kind of took the shift with Drupal 8 with a proudly found elsewhere, is what it's called. It's like, well, if people are making this library to make HTTP requests, why don't we just use that instead, rather than having to maintain our own code? And it really just kind of helps increase, our adoption, increase our flexibility. So that's really great. We also added more unit testing. So we actually use PHP unit for some tests. So those, if you're writing code, you can possibly use those. It's just kind of really nice. And again, Drupal 8's a web service now. It's not just a CMS. It's not just your website. It's a web service. And another one of my coworkers, Larry Garfield, is running that initiative. Hashtag pound Drupal-whiskey. Again, alcohol, an acronym. Yeah. So just to hit some small other things that have been put into core. So Twig is the new template engine by default. And so let's see. Nope, I can't zoom in. So we have this new format for making our template files. It's more secure. Non-PHP developers will find it more friendly. And it enables lots of great things. And we're really converting all of our Drupal templates to use these. And we're kind of getting rid of some of our theming functions too and using templates instead. So it'll actually be much easier to override lots of things in Drupal 8 in your template system now. We got rid of the process hooks in Drupal 7. They were like, there's pre-process. Most people know pre-process. It runs first, alters things before the template runs, and then process runs in between there somewhere. So it kind of made things more complex, and we just got rid of it. We now actually support PSR 0, which is kind of a standard way of locating or including files. It makes Drupal more supportive within the PHP community. People can reuse stuff in Drupal more easily now, which is really great. We actually added Composer, which is another PHP kind of library for supporting, do you need to use the Guzzle library? You use a Composer file to document that, and it should be able to automatically grab that for you. And I like to point out that the Composer logo is actually a conductor and not actually a composer, and I filed an issue in their page, but it got closed. Because I guess it could be ambiguous. The guy could be a composer as well. Support for Internet Explorer versions 8 and below are actually no longer supported at all in anything we do, so that's official. A fun little thing, it's like in your install directory, you'd always put your modules and themes in sites all modules or sites all themes. But actually, you now just put them in the root/modules directory or the root/themes directory. That's where your modules and themes go. Because there's actually a core directory now that's separate that holds all the core files. You don't touch that one. And it's more friendly for people installing it for the first time, because they always put their modules in /modules. There's an official style guide. You heard that in the video too. We kind of had a standardized way to refer to the UI and how things should work. We're still working on implementing this, but it's nice that we've actually have this going and official now. So that's really great. And again, there's just lots of new things. So we covered some of these new modules in core. There's date fields now in core as well. Email fields. Entity reference is now an official core module as well. See, you can make phone fields. So yeah, lots of great stuff. And it's interesting to also kind of see, there's this PHP developer, Anthony, who's looking at complexity of Drupal functions. And actually, we decreased our complexity in this method of looking at it in Drupal 8, which is actually kind of interesting to see. A lot of people may have think we got more complex, but actually we've technically, in this method, gotten less complex. Yeah, it's interesting. This is kind of my view of Drupal 8 sometimes. If you're a developer that's worked with Drupal before, you may find it frustrating. There's lots of major API changes and changes in the way that you work with it. But you know what? I think for a lot of people, for the site builders, people new to Drupal, it'll be a lot easier to understand and to get using. So I think it's a good thing. If you want to actually get involved in core, there's a great core mentoring group. They meet every week. and it's really designed for the newer contributors. If you pop into IRC in the #Drupal channel and ask at one of these times, they will set you up with a mentor and like assign you tasks. They're all like, they're efficient with it, and they're really great at getting new contributors involved. So if you're new to Drupal, I would highly suggest checking this out. And what could still be coming with Drupal 8? I've only shown you stuff that's beneficial. Dries and other kind of people like to demo fun stuff that's actually not been committed yet. I don't like to mess with you. But some things that could still land before Drupal 8's released. PSR 0 is great for libraries and that kind of thing, but for modules that have code, it ends up with directory structures of like 6 directories long. So we're maybe going to clean that up a little bit. The block UI is probably going to be cleaned up a bit with Tim Plunkett. We might have like an actual preview system of your content and a responsive preview toolbar, so you can like see how your node displays in certain displays. And we actually might have a real image upload in the WYSIWYG. Currently, it uploads and it links to the file. You can't really reuse the image in your WYSIWYG at all. But we might have a media light solution in Drupal 8. And again, I'd like to shout out that we're having a sprint here on the 3rd floor on Sunday. Brandon Neal is actually having a session right after this about getting started with media and file entity. It'd be a great one if you're new. If you want to help out in the sprint and aren't sure, just find any 3 of us, the 2 guys that helped right before me, and we'll help get you set up and ready to go. And I'm also giving a talk tomorrow about the current state of the media and file entity modules as well. So, I would love to have you help and participate if you're excited. So that's all I have. I'm not sure if we have time for questions. Maybe a few. If you want to go ahead and come up to the mic over here. That's all I have. So, thank you. No questions. Everyone's just excited about Drupal 8. That's great. Sorry, I can't hear that. A port of which? Is there a port of the tour module in Drupal 7? I believe there is, let's see. There is possibly a module for that, but I think it's broken. I will tweet a link to that afterwards. So, all right, any other questions at all? All right, well, thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your day of sessions, and hope everyone has a great camp. So.